Hancock Building Associates,
And your address, please?
248 Mill Road in town.
Okay. So, just show
This is
us.
Dave Madden, by the way, the owner.
Oh, yeah.
So Dave's owned this piece of property for 25 years. He was in the military, so at times he would rent it out, and he's kept it because him and his wife had always wanted to come back and retire to Chelmsford. So they're back, and Dave's ready to retire. And they really need a garage in order to really stay in town. Currently, the house is a corner lot, so hardship-wise, he's very tight on the left-hand side. There's really no room for a garage. We feel that on the right-hand side, because of the screening and the pump station, that's the best place for it to go.
Yeah, basically it's a dead-end road that nobody can ever be on the other side because it's the power lines and the water supply is behind us. And so that road's got to stop right at the pumping station. It can never be expanded or anything.
I guess the obvious question is, why can't we move that back a little? I mean, even if we go to a side lot setback, which would
Yep.
be 25 instead of 40, 8 feet is very tight. I don't know if there's a reason we can't go a little farther back and get some relief there. I recognize the property, I know where it is. I agree it's probably not gonna be bothersome to anybody, but it'd be nice to try to.
Brian, we were trying to get it where we thought it matched up best with the screening and everything. I mean, we got a picture of, like, he has his car parked right where it would go. So the vegetation that's there now is we thought would screen the garage, but we were open to the board's suggestions in terms of final
Yeah,
placement.
and that we didn't want to go too far back because I didn't want to take up the backyard, which would have taken a chunk of
What
the
number is
backyard.
it, Nancy?
56.
56.
Oh, so you're using what's natural vegetation there to kind of
Yeah.
cause a screening for the new structure, so it
Yeah.
doesn't
We
like.
put a low roof, and
obstruct,
it's the
okay.
same pitch as the house, at the same angle and stuff, so it should blend in very well back there, and the town actually paved, if you can see the original drawing, you can see the town
Yeah.
actually paved part of my yard, about 8
Did they?
feet of my yard. When they did the pumping station, when I wasn't here, I came back one time and realized they paved
Would you
part
mind
of the yard.
passing that?
Sure, absolutely, yeah, I brought it. It's tough to,
So we could put
so
the idea was
the
to put
car
garage
is exactly where the
where
garage
they
would be,
had-
and this is the screening that I'm sort of talking about.
For everybody else, I'll put it on the street view.
And my neighbor, I actually brought a letter too from my neighbor who's right across from me, looking at my garage. I showed them the plans and they signed a letter basically saying that they're good with it, that it won't bother them at all.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, maybe
that-
we should read those letters in.
Is this picture right
Do you
here
have that,
your
Brian?
house?
Yes.
Brian, do you have the letter?
Is it paved already?
To whom it may concern, we live on Kensington Drive across the street from Dave Madden. My front yard faces his backyard and will face the front of his garage. We have reviewed his proposed garage plans. We are in favor of the board granting him relief from the zoning requirements. Nestor and Ginger Manitou, 59 Kensington Drive, Chelmsford, Mass.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there's a view.
You see it?
So it's not currently, is it not currently paved? It's just a dirt drive that you park on right now?
Yeah, it's just a dirt, it was gravel when I bought the house, a little gravelly area over there. Because the driveway's never been wide enough. The original owner had decided to he had like 7 kids, so he put a 20 by 30 family room and where you would have put the garage.
Right,
So there's no
right.
room on that side of the house at all to put anywhere over there to put a garage. It has to go on the other side.
Does anybody else wanna?
No, I just had it up on there.
Do you guys want to look at this?
Let me see it from here.
So again, I guess I've got to ask if it's possible that you could move it back. I mean, if we consider Kensington a side lot, it would be 25 feet, and you have 8 now, it would still be 17 feet short of the goal, and we can, we could get a special permit if it was 20 feet away, right? 20
20.
20 even. I mean, would it be possible to go back, instead of the 8, to go back the 20? I know it would affect your backyard a little, but it's really tough to,
I actually think, Brian, that
Got too
I mean,
far.
we're definitely open to a compromise, but if we come back that far, I think it's actually going to be a little bit, awkward in terms of like him pulling into like behind the yard.
Yeah, I think, yeah,
so
aesthetically,
is the front of the driveway facing Kensington?
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah, the idea being, I think it's
He'd
further
have
back.
a longer drive, I
Yeah.
understand.
But the house is kind of side angled to the yard, so yeah. It would,
But I'm not sure it would really encroach in your backyard, the way the house is positioned on the lot.
Yeah, it's just further back. My concern was the further back it goes, actually probably the worse it would look. And that was my bigger concern. Where the closer it was, the more it looks better on the side of the house than taking it back, because it would.
But
can't
you're
get the
using
same-
up a good bit of your
Yeah,
backyard.
it's a weird angle. The house is at a weird angle, so the
It
garage.
is
would be
good
this-
land to use, though. There's no, to me, obvious reason you couldn't move it back. If it'd be very
mean-
nice to get it back,
I was-
12 feet,
yeah,
12
I
feet
was-
further.
Yeah, I was just more the other, why move it back if we don't have to? If you're never gonna have an issue with that where it's being placed, why have to move it back?
It's kind of why we approached the neighbor right there too, Brian.
Yeah, no, I'm
Yeah.
glad that he's in favor of it. I that's great. It's really, I mean, you literally couldn't put a car in your driveway. It's only 8 feet deep.
Yeah.
So you could put a car in the garage proper, but no one will ever be able to park in front of it. It seems unnecessary to go that close to your lot. If there was no other place to put it, I'd feel better. But I mean, we're a board here, so I'm not saying the others wouldn't feel differently. I feel that you really can't even get a car in your driveway without opening the garage door.
Well, that's, the plan is, we got the driveway on the other side, and then we would have the garage on this side, so there's still a driveway
For the home.
for the home.
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
So that's why I was looking at doing it that way, because we have a driveway on the other side that's, basically can hold 2 cars. With one in front of the other.
Yep.
But
Yep.
the
No,
garage
I-
would be just
yeah.
for the garage, no one would park in the garage driveway.
Where are the sewer lines?
Yeah, that's the other concern.
show
I'm glad you
that.
said that. The sewer lines, oops, go back to the view.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The sewer line comes out here and goes like this and comes like over here.
Oh,
So it's behind it, so I can't go back too far because I'm gonna hit that sewer line too.
Okay.
You know, 'cause
so they tie-
that was my other concern. I wanted to make sure I stayed away from the sewer because that's even a bigger mess.
It is relocatable. Again, I don't know what everyone else on the board feels about it, but I would honestly like to see you have a parking space in front of the garage, so when you pull into the driveway, you're not halfway in the road, and I'm sure you'll have electric openers and all of that, but it just seems really without cause to we're looking for a variance, not a special permit.
Sure.
So if we go the 20 feet back, we could give you a special permit, which doesn't require a hardship. And I personally am having a hard time understanding the hardship where it appears that it's pretty easy. If you have to relocate the sewer line, and if you want to postpone and find the sewer line and say this is how far back we can go before the sewer line, at least there'd be something, we could say this is the reason that we didn't move it farther back. I really think you'd be happier with a driveway in front of the garage anyway.
I'll be honest with you, no, I wouldn't be.
It's not much
I've got an
electrical,
8-foot driveway already there that I wouldn't have to put a driveway in, which would cost another $10,000 or whatever to put a driveway in.
But even to pull in and park the car, you even if you didn't put in a driveway proper, you don't have to put in a driveway. But when you pull your car into the garage, your car has got to be 16 feet long.
Right.
So you're 8 feet away. I mean, personally, it's too close. But I'm
What would you got? What would you feel better about, Brian, if we were? If it
I
was,
would really feel better if we went to 20 feet, which would allow us to give you a special permit instead of a variance. There's no hardship requirement at that point, and it's less onerous.
In all speaking, Brian, I don't see a hardship, so we could not do a variance for this in my mind.
There's an option that allows you, in my opinion, to put the garage on your property, and we can give you a special permit without a hardship. A hardship is soil, topography,
A lot.
Would
and
the
lot
sewer,
shape.
What is
would
a
the
corner
sewer
lot?
line be a
It's too
hardship?
far.
It is well,
Yeah.
I'm willing to consider that Kensington is a side setback of 25. Technically, it's a front and a front, which I think is a problem.
Would,
You
but the
know.
sewer line wouldn't be considered a hard, I mean, if you were to redirect the sewer line, he'd have to pay, right, to redirect a sewer line, which is,
It's an expense, but it is relocatable. It's not,
well, that's a
it's
financial,
a
that's
pipe
a
in the
financial
ground.
hardship,
They're
though.
gonna be excavating anyways. If you wanna find out where the sewer line is, and we can look at that and say, if we don't disturb the sewer line, this is how far back we can go, we'd entertain that, you know, I mean, I just can't understand the hardship when there, to me, obviously is a place to put it. I know it may be more inconvenient for your backyard, but
Yeah, and aesthetically.
the setbacks are for a reason, you know,
Yeah,
they're.
but, you know, usually the setbacks, if the reason is you potentially have to utilize that at some point for the town, and there's no way you'd ever utilize the land.
No, I think there's a little more to the setback than that personally, but there's a lot of reasons that the setbacks are there. You go by some of the very older homes in towns and they're 6 feet away from the roadway.
Oh, no, no.
It's, well, you're only gonna be 8, so.
Yeah, and also I gotta deal with a pumping station that's there and listening to that all the time. You know, I figured you guys would consider that as well.
I don't think we can consider a pumping station. It's not, I mean, is it on your property?
No.
No, but when it fires up, Brian.
So
you
it wouldn't
really-
be a lot, it wouldn't be soil conditions, and it wouldn't be lot shape that affects it, so. You know, we can specifically grant a variance for 3 reasons. I'm trying to figure a way to make this work so it makes sense to everybody. I'm gonna go ahead and read the letters in now. The building department on 56 Yancey Road has no comments. On 56 Yancey Road, the fire prevention has no comments. On 56 Yancey Road, engineering has some notes. Erosion control devices must retain the sediment on site. These must be installed prior to any work or demolition. 2, the DPW advises the garage be relocated further from the town's right-of-way. And for snow removal and such, I think that's probably part of their issue. 3, the town's sewer pump station is at the end of the street. Please note that access to the pump station must never be obstructed, which I don't think in either case you would be doing. The Board of Health has no comments.
That's your legal ad.
Is that a legal ad? And this
Board
is
of Health again.
24, that's 24 and 24. So those are the letters I have, including the letter in favor of it from your neighbor. I think I'm gonna go out in the audience and see if there's anybody who would like to speak in favor or opposition to this application. Or anyone on the Zoom. I don't know if we have anybody on Zoom.
Just Steve.
We'd be willing to compromise and go maybe 16 feet instead of 20 feet, at least bring it in a little bit.
So what, what happens if we don't stay at the 20 feet is that it becomes a special permit. If we don't, it becomes a variance, and as Charlie pointed out, we don't see a hardship for this. We don't see a reason for it. So to get a variance, I think, would be pretty tricky. But a special permit would be an option where we don't have to look at the hardship. The hardship is why can't you put it where it belongs? And I don't see one, so I think to go to 20 feet, considering Kensington a side street, which it is a dead end at that point, I think is acceptable, but we're, you know, if it was 40 feet, that's 20% of 40.
I think it's
12,
32
13.
or something.
Yeah, so it would be 8.
8 feet.
That's all you'd get before that was a consideration. So it would be in the middle of your backyard or much closer to it. I think that's the best deal I can offer you. And I'm again speaking for myself, so if anyone else has thoughts on it, more than welcome to hear.
I would rather go to the 32 feet and have it a real front setback, but since you want to call it a side setback, I'll go with you.
Okay. Are there any other thoughts on this matter?
I agree with your
willing to
thoughts.
Make the changes and compromise with the board and move it back.
I think it's gonna be the way you can make it happen. I don't think a hardship is there.
That's the important part, Brian, is making it happen for him. Yeah.
Right, right.
So do we have to continue it?
I don't think we have to continue it if we're gonna take a vote tonight. I mean, if
Well,
we're
the
not gonna worry
denial.
the sewer, we're not, if you guys wanna say the sewer is part of the hardship, even that would be a struggle for me, because the sewer is relocated. And the only way that would be non-relocated is you had such a shallow pitch that you couldn't add an amount to that length,
Yeah.
you know, but
I mean, I kind of agree with you, Brian, that I don't think that's really a hardship.
and I know that pump is, that pumping station's very deep. A little information from across the street there, and that's a very deep pumping station. So I imagine your pipe telescopes down pretty quickly, but
That was,
I am,
and my instincts are, when I first bought the house, they had just put sewer in, probably 6 months earlier. So that's why I think it runs, up further, almost like it says. I think, because I think the sewer it connects to is right here, the pipe. So I think it does something like this.
yeah.
22s.
If you guys want to postpone, you can get the as-built from the sewer department and see what makes sense at that point. But
Yeah, but if you're telling me that's not considered a hardship, then that doesn't.
it would only be a hardship if you said that I physically cannot move that pipe,
Mm.
because the pitch would be an eighth inch of a foot, which is not enough. If you extend the length, then you have to extend the pitch.
Okay.
But I'd be surprised if it was, because I know that area a little bit, and it's deep.
There's a forced main on the street.
Say it again?
There's a forced main on the street. See it?
Oh, yeah, to get to the pumping station, but he's probably not on the force main.
Okay.
He's well within the gravity area. So if there are no questions or concerns, I guess I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing, Brian.
Second.
By Nancy, all in favor?
Aye.
Voting tonight will be myself, Steve, Charlie, Nancy, and Jamie. Okay.
So Brian, what are we voting on, the 20 or the 8?
20.
The 20-foot setback, allowing us to
Okay.
approve a special permit
Okay.
as opposed to a variance.
Okay, well, hearing that, I'd like to make a motion to approve a special permit for 56 Yancey Road to construct a 22 by 24 building. And even at the 20 feet, we're calling the Kensington Drive a side setback. So instead of doing a variance, we're doing a special permit only.
Good motion, Charlie. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Nancy. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Steve says aye. It's
Steve says
unanimous.
aye, that's
Yep.
good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thanks
Appreciate
for your
it.
consideration.
Thank you.
And thanks for letting me go first.
I hope it's the best thing I can do. I don't know how else it would go ahead. Okay, so that is second lane. No, that was Nancy. This one is Lane from the agenda.
This one's mine.
This is the next one.
Our next public hearing is 14 Kills Hill Road, with apologies, Asoth Noun, for a variance under 195-9 conformity to construct a 40 by 24 detached garage that will not meet the side setback and any other relief that may be deemed necessary.
Yes, my name is President Nguyen. I live on 14 Chelmsford. I asked Tom, my friend here, to speak on my behalf.
Okay?
Thanks. My name's Tom McGinty. I'm a resident of Chelmsford. I'm also a licensed builder. I am speaking on behalf so that, he can clearly,
I understand.
accurately.
And I could just get your address. That'd be
It's
terrific.
5 Horseshoe Road.
Okay.
Okay. Just also, I have no financial arrangement with him. I'm just doing this as a friendship
It's fine to
arrangement.
speak for him.
Okay. So what he's doing, he's looking to do a detached garage, and the due to the kind of the nature of the angle of the lot and the current driveway, where it is kind of pushed farther down to the property below, the 10-foot distance required from the house, okay, kind of, and also trying to align it with the driveway, so that we're not paving the whole backyard to make it work. That is where kind of that's the closest it can get to the I guess to the house, but also it falls within the wooded area of the neighbor's house. So the property next door, the house is actually farther forward here, and their backyard, it probably extends to, it's about 75 to 100 feet. We measured it about 75 to 100 feet. This is all wooded area here, so we felt that because it's farther back, it's pretty, it's farther off the road. It's not visible, and it doesn't really impact anything on the neighbor's property. The other thing is, if it were to go in the backyard, it would require clearing more of the trees, which they obviously don't want to really do, and then it would also require an enormous driveway to do that, and they don't really want to pave the whole backyard. So they're looking for a relief on that side.
And they have 12, and I think their relief now would be, do you know when the structure was built?
1988.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's 25, right?
So it's a 25-foot side setback,
Yeah, should be 25,
and you're at 12.
Yeah.
And I do see a little difference here with the discussion we just had, as the farther back you go, does not improve your lie at all.
Correct.
If
It
you go-
puts you. It kind of. The problem is that left boundary just pushes it. It pushes it
The farther back you
farther
go, the
back
more into the
yeah. So
backyard you have to go.
that's kind of what it is, and we feel that because it is wooded land behind the property next door.
And the house next door is the one that's so proud of it up there.
Correct.
That's the
So,
house there.
so there, that's far, yeah, so it would be in here. You'd be looking for it back in here, which is, we measured, it's around 80 to 100 feet probably back. So it would be back into this corner, like right in here. So,
Have you spoken to your neighbor about that?
Yes, I did. They all for it. No issue.
They didn't write you a letter, though?
I got one I've got at home, and the other one's on the way too.
Well, he was notified, so I guess I can assume that he's not adamantly against it. Any questions from the board?
I have a couple. Just a comment. I really don't see a problem moving it back. And the other thing is, it's larger than 900 square feet, and the zoning says 900, so this is 60 feet over.
The allowable size of a garage?
It's 900.
No, it has to go to the planning board afterwards.
Oh, that's a planning board issue.
Yeah, at over 900 feet. square feet.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It was 42 by
So if you
20.
Yeah,
got
it's
approved, you'd have to
960.
go to them anyway.
I mean, he would be willing to reduce that to work within the, within that square
Reduce the
footage.
size to get to the 900 and avoid the planning board?
No, actually, this is the desired size, but if it were missing by a few, I mean, he'd opt to move it, if it's 60 square feet, obviously he could reduce it by the amount.
Oh, it's 40 by 24, wait a minute.
And so what would it take to make it to the 20 feet for a variance instead of, for a special
To
permit instead of a
36,
variance?
or 36.
It's like 8 feet.
We need 8 feet, right? Because we're almost at the same. situation as the other one.
Yeah, Brian, this is real similar to the last one.
It is. I don't find it as encroaching as the other one. I thought there was a lot of room in the other lot to put a garage as opposed to this one.
This lot seems even bigger.
So if it became 40 by 22, that would give 14 feet. But as I think, if he moves it back, it's not gonna, if he moves it
closer.
straight back, it doesn't improve it. It probably harms his setback.
Right.
So if he moves it back,
You have to go beyond, is that a deck off the back of the house?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then now you're into, I mean, it's actually, we've played with it, it's actually directly behind the house at
Right.
that point, so.
yeah, I think by the time you'd be close to get to the.
Right.
So we don't need to really get to the 25-foot setback, which is shown there. We need to get to the 20, but it's not going to improve drastically as he moves back.
20's gonna take.
It wouldn't be so bad if you lined it up with the side line. I'm looking at it. If you take that and bend it, and it wouldn't.
Right, but the
It would
line
be-
is unseen.
Right, of
How
course,
you want to be
of course.
parallel to or perpendicular either way to the house.
Okay.
Because the line's an unknown. Even though it's there, it's not visually.
And there are letters that or not? We don't have letters supporting
I
it
have
from
letters
the
from the
neighbors?
town, but I do not have any letters from his neighbors.
I live at home.
Well, he was notified, so if it was a big problem for him, I imagine. If you'd like to come up to the podium,
Speak.
suppose I should open it to the public.
You just did.
At this point, I'm going to open the meeting to the public. Anyone in favor or opposition, feel free to speak. I just need your name and address.
My name is Brandon Kelly. I am the neighbor directly on the other side. I am at 16 Chelmsford Road. I think if you really look at what Mr. Noon is trying to do, it really is the best approach to it. The way that our lots are all at a kind of an obtuse angle, it doesn't allow for much development or additions to the properties. However, if you do look at the way that the property is located, it is a wooded area, which would be to the shorter side of the setback side. So you're not impacting anybody's views. And what he's trying to do would actually be the least disruptive to the wooded area that does actually isolate all of us from each other. So, in terms of if he really couldn't shift that property closer towards the house, the way that the road or that the driveway sits in relation to the property, in order to have a straight approach into that garage, you would need to have the angled setback. So, I mean, I'm completely in favor. He's done a beautiful job to the house, and it's it's a great neighborhood. Everybody was in favor. He did personally come around to all of the neighbors and speak to everyone individually, and like I said, nobody had any opposition to it at the time. So, just want to put that on for record.
Thank you. Any other comments from Zoom or the audience? Seeing none, I'll read the letters. 14 Kells Hill Road, the Board of Health has no comments. 14 Kells Hill Road, the fire has a note. It says, Mr. Norm, which I think has been answered here, indicated the garage will be located more than 10 feet from the existing home. The office has no concerns regarding this proposal and asks the ZBA to make this document part of the approval process. Captain Dan Kostafis. The engineering department has notes. Erosion control devices must retain the sediment on site. These must be installed prior to any work or demolition. You only got one note, wow. The building department has an attached letter. This is the denial letter. 14 Kells Hill Road, South Nuan. For a variance under 195 nonconformity, construct a 40 by 24 detached garage that will not meet the side setback. The required side setback is 25 feet, and your submitted plan shows a 12-foot setback. You can request a variance for the ZBA and proceed with this detached garage project. Thank you, Jose Negron. And that is all of my letters. Any thoughts?
My thought is they still can't come up with a reason to grant a variance, Brian.
I could see lot shape being challenging, but again, there's just plenty of room back there.
Yes. Yeah.
I'd like to suggest that you look into getting a special permit as opposed to a variance. The issue is the hardship. It's hard to recognize when you clearly have enough room in the property to do this. I know the existing gardening is probably something you don't want to part with, and I'm sure that's from the sound of it, a beautiful garden. But that's probably what I would suggest at this point, is you try to look to get 20 feet away from the side lot instead of 25, and see if you can maybe reduce that. You want to get down to the 900 foot. If you made it 22 feet wide, you'd be at 880, and that would avoid the planning board. Though I think it's just a process. I don't think it would be particularly hard to do that.
It's 932, right? 932 square feet, is that what it is? That's what the,
Building?
yeah.
So 24.
No, I mean, what our rules are 9, because I went through this. I think isn't it 932?
It's 900.
Oh, it's 900?
That's what I thought too. We can look it up, but I thought 900 was.
Okay.
What did you have?
I'm just gonna tell you what I have.
How big was yours?
896, so you
Problem?
might be onto something there. Where is it in here? Do you know?
No, I haven't
It's
seen
in,
this forever.
Accessory structures.
Yeah, so the size now is 960, which requires you to go to the planning board to get approval.
Yeah.
I don't think that really would be impossible to do, but if you were to make it 2 feet thinner, that would help your cause 2 more feet. Might limit how much you need to go back to get a special permit. I mean, just based on the conversations, I think a variance is gonna be hard to grant. But it is, if you'd like to go through the process, we can.
And you're saying get it within the 20-foot bound setback. If you can get it within a 20-foot setback, it's only a
You'd
special
still need-
permit.
But we could consider granting a special permit, stating that it would be within the 20 feet, and then you'd gain the 20% that we allow.
Okay, I mean, you wanna
It's
make- okay, so I don't think he understands what the,
You can explain it if you want, and, we're not, there's not a ton tonight, so if you want to talk to him about it, that's okay. If you want to postpone for a month, you can do that and come back with a new plan. Ideally, you want to be 25 feet away.
correct.
And to be closer than that, you need a special permit until you hit the 20% mark, which is 20 feet away.
Okay.
So if you can make it 20 feet away, we can approve it.
Okay.
The suggestion to go to 22 feet wide allows you to still have a 2-car garage. It's narrower by 2 feet, but it would leave you under the 900-foot mark, which was the requirement to go to the planning board.
Okay.
Which I still think you could go through that process. I don't think they're going to have a problem with it, but I'm not the planning board, so I'm speaking for
So
them.
the real issue is get within the 20 feet, and then.
Because for a variance,
Could do a-
for a
For a
variance is
special-
what you're asking for right now.
Correct.
Where it has some certain criteria it has to meet.
Right. And-
With a special permit, we don't have to worry about that criteria.
But what you're saying is the variance is, from what you're seeing here, is not
It
likely.
could be
Oh,
hard, I mean, we can't,
Okay.
none of us can individually speak for the entire board, but it could be hard to justify at
Okay,
this
all
point.
right. So it sounds like your best bet is to try to work within the 20 feet and do special permit then, okay?
22 feet right here.
Or 20 feet, 20-foot setback. So it's actually gonna change by, it's gonna change by 8. It's gonna you're gonna lose 8 feet on the side. You gotta gain 8 feet actually on the side. Okay.
And the other thing you want to consider at this point is, do you want to go to under 900 feet? And that would be the direction we'd grant it with
Correct.
that, and so you could avoid the planning board.
Okay.
Hey, Paul, are we getting too loose here? Should we ask them to come back with a located plan? Is that something we
Well,
can?
you didn't ask the prior applicant to come back with a new plan, so, I
Yeah.
mean,
That's correct, that's correct.
I think you're better off seeing a plan before you approve something. And particularly here, location is, it's not just gonna move back, but it may actually, shift backwards on
It's
the
gonna
lot
go,
as well.
it's gonna be hard to really see where it's going.
Correct. So I think you're better off seeing a plan before granting any relief.
So I think that'd be, my suggestion, we postpone it for a month, or continue it for a month, and come in with a plan that puts it 20 feet away from the
And-
lot line, and I
and
think
that-
that would be favorably reviewed. I think
Okay,
that-
and then
The problem is the
under
variance and the hardship that goes with it is, it's not, and you shouldn't hand it out without looking at every avenue of relief.
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you. All right.
So if I could have a motion, continue this to,
November 4th?
November 4th?
I'll make a motion to continue 14 Kells
Hill.
Hill Road until November 4th.
Does he reapply with new
Nope.
paperwork?
You just,
We just show up
you're
with
gonna come in with a
plan?
new,
Okay, and
plot plan that locates it.
Call me in the morning.
Okay. Thank you. All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Second, Nancy, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Steve?
He said aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the other one looked a little easier to understand, and I thought Charlie's motion was accurate, so that's good. Timothy Chase is our next applicant, 5 Noble Drive, for a special permit under 195-6.1, limited accessory apartment, and special permits under 195-9 conformity to construct a limited accessory apartment that does not meet the side and front setback, and any other relief that may be deemed necessary.
This came in today.
Hi,
Good evening.
Timothy Chase, 5 Noble Drive.
We'll pull up the,
No, this is, you guys have to look at it this way, 'cause these came in today. They were wrong before.
okay. Everybody get one?
What about Steve?
What about Steve?
Oh, what, can you, either
What
Steve.
do you mean, what about Steve?
Want to text you a picture of it
Never send it?
and never send it?
Yeah, we learned that lesson.
I've learned, I'm
You
moving
know what I'll
ahead.
do?
Scan it PDF might be better if you're Apple.
I'll put it in front of the camera.
I can scan a PDF and text it, might look better for him
Okay.
as
I
opposed
don't know
to
what that
picture.
means, but yeah.
This is what's I have on my phone.
Jamie is gonna text you a fancy one. So our setback
I don't know if you can see.
is 20.5. Educated. And 37 feet to the proposed porch. Meaning both the front and side setback would be special permits. Addition is 21.5 by 37. And what is that? Is it a single-story addition?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Let me get that. Just 1 second.
Technology.
It's 781, 367, 4122. In case he doesn't want everyone's in.
Yep. This is the addition.
So I just wanted to get the footage, make sure it was another
Oh,
750.
okay.
This is also a little bigger than so we're gonna give you relief on the size as well. That's 795 square feet.
Yes.
questions from the board at this point?
So the proposed addition goes right where the Airstream is parked right now?
Yes.
Hey, the only other
It's
question
actually not mine. It's a friend
Okay.
of mine, so.
The only other question, normally the easements are 30 feet wide. This is really a 20-foot easement on the other side?
20 on his side,
I mean on your land.
but is there 10
They
on the
usually
other?
split them. They usually split the easements, but this says
I got the whole
entire.
easement.
You have the whole
I
easement.
have the whole
You're
easement on
lucky.
the left, yeah.
You're a lucky man. The whole
You should
easement.
have that, Steve.
Okay. I'm all set, Brian.
Okay, thank you.
I hit send.
Didn't like my phone.
I don't know what, no, that's all I did is grab his number and send it.
On my server.
Have some letters for me? Any other comments from the board?
What was the reason for the apartment, for the addition being over the 750?
I think it was closets and, it's gonna be a stairway.
So it's a single story, but there's gonna be a stairway,
Well, to the
be
basement,
an entry, oh, okay,
to the
okay.
basement. So
This
my
says it at
garage
748.
So I haven't seen that, so that's helpful. I just
was
did, I
actually
did the
some
outside
switching around.
dimensions.
The last piece
And
was the
closets.
748.
Okay.
Entryways and stairways are excluded.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So that sounds like it'll be fine.
Yeah, this is 748 with the closets and stairways?
Yeah, I just did the outside of the whole building,
Oh.
so. In fact, I think that would reduce anyways because the walls don't count. The exterior walls. Oh, stairway right there, that's 120 feet right there. So it does fall under the 750, which is great.
Okay.
Want me to send you this one too, Steve? The
No,
the
we
room
don't have
layout?
that kind of time. You don't get set.
Have it set?
I'm good with your math question.
Okay, but, yeah, I think it's easily now well under.
Who's gonna live there?
Excuse me?
Who's gonna live there?
My parents.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a letter from Dan Kostafis, proposed limited accessory apartment at 5 Noble Drive. Dear members of the board, the office has reviewed the proposed limited accessory apartment at 5 Noble Drive and finds the following. The entire home shall be upgraded to comply with the latest edition of the Massachusetts State Building Code for smoke, heat, and carbon monoxide detectors. The proponents shall submit plans for review to the Fire Prevention Office via the Town of Chelmsford online permitting portal. All smoke, carbon monoxide, and heat detectors required shall be marked on the plans prior to submission for review. This department is concerned that there's more than one dwelling on the property and that occupancy should be identifiable from the street. This office will require 2 mailboxes identifying the property as 5 Noble Drive and 5A Noble Drive. The applicant shall apply for addresses to the Chelmsford E911 Committee and its coordinator, Town Clerk Tricia Druez. This department is not interested in an official change of address being recorded on the deed. It is only our intent to distinguish this home to emergency responders. This officer would approve this plan with these conditions. I ask that the board make this letter part of their approval process. Respectfully, Dan Kostafis, Captain, Chelmsford Fire Department. I have a letter from the Board of Health, 5 Noble Drive with no comments. A letter from Engineering with notes for 5 Noble Drive. Erosion control devices must retain sediment on site. They must be installed prior to any work or demolition. No structures are permitted within the drainage easement. I have the letter from the building inspector, the LLA setback denial letter, Mr. Chase, Timothy Chase, 5 Noble Drive, for a special permit under 195 limited accessory apartment and special permits under the 195 nonconformity to construct a limited accessory apartment that does not meet the side and front setbacks. The The required front setback is 40 feet, the side is 25 feet. You can request a special permit through the ZBA process and proceed with the LAA project. Thank you, Jose Negron. And that is the end of my letters. Anyone in the audience would like to speak in favor or opposition to this? Now is the time. And Zoom. I don't think there's anybody on Zoom besides
Just
Jose.
one.
Seeing none,
I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
second by Jamie, all in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve 3 special permits. 1 permit for the limited access apartment, 1 special permit for the front setback, 1 special permit for the side setback, and I'd like to take into consideration the letters written in, and make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Second by Nancy, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous? Good luck with it.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
I don't think you can say good luck from Zoom, can you?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
Good luck.
Keep stepping on his
Don't let
toes.
him taste it.
You want those down? Yes, these are 24-second lane.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think you have all the letters that I have. These are the letters for 14 kills.
Probably an outbuilding or something.
Is that what you did?
Just saying it in a nice way.
Our next public hearing is 4 Northgate Road. And apologies again, James Podolsky and Michelle Meltzer, for a variance under 195-9 conformity to construct a deck does not meet the rear setback and any other relief that may be deemed necessary. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, Brian Melissi with Whitman and Bingham Associates, here representing the homeowners of 4 Northgate Road. With me is James Podolsky. You did a pretty good job there, Brian.
Good evening.
He is the homeowner. We are in front of you here tonight, asking for relief to a rear yard setback for a proposed deck at number 4 Northgate Road. I know everybody else had an opportunity to have their plans up on the screen. I have a couple of extra copies if you need one.
I think we have that, yeah, we have it.
There we go, perfect. In this case, we're in the RB zoning district, which currently has a 30-foot rear yard setback. As you can see with the size of the proposed deck, we are proposing to be 23 feet off of the rear line at its closest point. The unique thing about this lot is the plan that creates this lot, the subdivision plan, is dated 1952. So if we look into the non-conforming structure part of the bylaw, 1952 would allow us a rear yard setback of 10 feet. However, the unique thing about this lot is, according to the assessor's records, the dwelling itself wasn't built until 1963. And again, if we go to that same table, 1963 utilizes the current zoning offsets, which has an offset of 30 feet, which is what we show. The dwelling itself, again, according to today's regulations, doesn't meet front or side yard offsets. So again, pre-existing non-conforming. So again, that table, which I think is a great idea, allowing to go back to some of the historical offsets. There was a little bit of this is one of those things that doesn't quite fit into that square peg, So we were asking for the variance for that.
So just, the lot was designed in 58, but they didn't get to, was it plan to build? Was that like a whole subdivision at the
Yeah, so there was a
time?
whole subdivision plan. dated 1952.
Oh, 52.
1952.
And they just never got around to building that particular house till 61?
I
Or-
probably should have. I didn't do a
Is
lot of
that-
research on the neighborhood, not exactly sure when the houses in the neighborhood were built, but
Okay.
this has got some of my hand scratching on it, but this is a copy of the recorded plan from 1952, which created the lot.
Okay.
Mr. Negron, are you online here?
Jose, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry, I couldn't get it to work.
Okay, so I read your denial letter, and it says the 30 feet is correct. I was talking about the subdivision being created. Is that a factor into it with your opinion of the setbacks? Because the lot
Yeah,
was actually created in 58, I believe.
Yeah, I tried to dig as much information as I could based on those years, the gap. And based on my finding, I issued this letter of denial on the 30 feet setback requirement.
So you don't feel when the lot was created, that is a setback. You feel when the house was constructed.
Right.
Okay.
That's not consistent with what we've done historically. It says date structure.
My historian feels that's not consistent with what we've done historically.
Because it was built, and we did this a while back, but because it was built, at the time, it was built to the zoning of the subdivision, not the zoning of, 4
I
years
see your point,
later.
and it makes sense. I mean, just gotta go with.
But again, I will respect your decision on this matter, whatever decision you make on this matter tonight.
The bylaw does read based upon year structure was built in zoning district.
The structure was constructed. Yeah, I guess if there was a lot in town that had never been built, it would be to today's standards, right? I mean, every one of them would be.
Only that
The interesting thing is, had they constructed this deck as part of the original construction, even though the bylaw had changed and the setback was larger, they could have constructed up to it because it was a pre-existing non-conforming lot. So they weren't subject to the dimension requirements when it was originally constructed. But once it was constructed and the bylaws have been in place, this provision doesn't apply because it only applies to lots that had been constructed as of the time of the adoption.
Creation.
So it's a little gray area there.
Right. So much of it is too. It's hard to follow.
And if it does help the board, Mr. Podolsky, a couple of years ago, him and his wife put up a nice fence around the back of the property. So if you were to go out there today, it's fairly private back there. They're doing a nice job kind of fixing the place up. So it is a deck, not a garage. There is no deck on the house currently, and they just obviously just want to provide some nice backdoor living, usable living space.
That's as close as I can zoom to, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
20%, right?
Just trying to.
Of 30?
I mean, what is the lot size?
What's 20% of 30?
Pull up the,
The lot size is 14,882.
It's just no.
It's 24.
There's really no other
So
place
if
you
could
could
get it to
put
24,
that.
you could do it by special permit.
But if you do 1 foot at 24, you need a special permit now.
Because that-
Knock off 1 foot.
After 61.
Very good. So we were just having a discussion.
Only-
Could you loud and clear?
Did you hear what she said? Is that a consideration for you? Would you
1 foot.
like to go for a special permit with that?
Right.
I don't want to put any words in my client's mouth, but it certainly means the difference between a denial and an approval. We would reduce the size of the deck from the 16 feet to the 15 feet in order to meet that. Which I know I probably sunk myself, but we do think it's a gray enough area. It is only a foot. We've had some discussions about it, especially in lieu of the first 2 hearings that you guys went through tonight. So with that being said,
I think we're very, the variances are hard. The special permit is a lot more.
Correct.
We don't need a hardship. I mean, it's a small lot, but that doesn't
No,
create.
correct. We did think
lot shape,
we did
you know?
think we had the hardship. I know lot shape. someone's looking at this lot and saying, how could lot shape be? It's almost a perfectly square lot. But just the fact that, again, the 1952 creation of the lot and the zoning offsets were there, we still think it's enough for a variance. However, to move it forward, we could meet that 24-foot offset to the rear.
And if it was a footage matter, I don't think we'd have any concern if it was to become 21.3 or 22 feet wider, so you have the same amount of square feet if you went to the side as opposed to the back. So maybe we could look at an approval where it was, is that something you think you'd pursue, is make it a little wider to give you the same amount of footage?
Does it fit cosmetically with the house?
I appreciate that option, but you can't see in the drawing is there's like a fish pond that's
Yeah.
in the ground. You can maybe catch it on the aerial. So we're limited in going to the right on the drawing. But I appreciate that as an option. But if it comes down to if we can proceed tonight with the special permit and chop the foot off the deck.
I think that would be your best avenue, for sure.
And rather than have you guys make a motion, I'd like to request that we're allowed to, redraw the plan showing a 24-foot maximum, if you will, offset to the rear line.
Okay, if you want to do that,
We would like
that
to
would be
do that.
great.
And I would also maybe ask the board to allow us to provide that plan, during the appeal period. It is only a deck, and we can do that fairly quickly, but just to try to save a month. We would hopefully be maybe looking for that decision tonight so that we can get the appeal periods kind of off and ticking, if you will.
right, I think it'd be required for the building permit to have one drawn, as long as it was a special permit.
Correct.
I think that would be fine.
Right.
We don't even really have to get into the width in our decision. We don't have to say how wide it's gonna be, as long as it's, has a setback that's 24 feet.
No real line.
So I will read these letters, and we can go into the audience as well. The building department has an attached letter of denial, which we already read. 4 Northgate Road Engineering. Erosion control devices must retain the sediment on site. These must be installed prior to any work or demolition. The Fire Prevention Office has no comments, and the Board of Health has no comments. Is there anyone in the audience or on Zoom that would like to speak in favor or opposition to this application? Seeing none,
Sorry, I'll just add, I did talk to the neighbors that would be affected behind on the other side of the fence. I talked to them when the initial project was in our heads, and they said, fine.
They had no concerns.
No objections. I talked to them again last night, told them about the meeting this evening.
yeah, they should have received a notice of
Yes,
that,
they
so they,
did,
you know,
yeah. And they said, again, they had no issues, so.
thank you. Seeing that, I look for a motion, or do we have any further questions from the board?
I'll make a motion.
Quiet board?
Motion to close.
Motion to close the public hearing by Nancy,
Second by Jamie.
second by Jamie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'd like to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the special permit for 4 Northgate Road to construct a deck with a 24-foot rear setback. And all letters read to be included.
I like that. I'll second that.
Second by Charlie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous?
Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Enjoy.
Good luck with it.
Am bowing out.
Okay, well, have a very good night. Yeah, that's our last one, so that should, let you off the hook.
You don't want to stay for fun?
Now, you don't need me anymore, right?
Yeah. Now you can go, Paul.
I don't have the continuance letter. Here it is. This is a, no, it's not, it's a new hearing,
Oh, yeah, they're all new hearings today.
I just,
Okay, I'm sorry.
we've seen them, too. For 24, 26, 28, 30 Second Lane, Hard Pond Development LLC for an administrative appeal of the Chelmsford Zoning Board of Appeals. The applicant seeks to appeal the July 27th, 2021 letter of determination by the building commissioner stating that multiple principal structures on one lot is not permitted. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I have copies of a PowerPoint that was submitted today.
Point of order? Is that appropriate, Mr. Reading, a point of order?
That's Pam Rivard.
Hi, Pam.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Point of order.
A point of order.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, what is your point?
As this is a new public hearing, was it necessary for the abutters to receive a certified notification of the meeting?
I believe that is the case, yes.
There are at least 3 abutters here that have not received that.
Do we have the green
notification.
cards?
Yeah, and we don't get green cards, but yes, I have it.
This is,
Oh, that's Kelso, I'm sorry.
I'm afraid to blame the post office, but,
Well, I mailed them myself. They're all stamped by the
so
post
can you
office.
tell me the addresses that?
Yes,
Oh.
I'm Pam Rivard, 49 First Lane.
Jeez.
I do not see your name here.
Okay,
I'm the
there.
direct abutter.
Investment
Oh,
trust.
49 First Lane, okay. So you are on the list of abutters. I don't know, Mr. Haverty, how does that work? She has not received it. I mean,
Do you want the
She's
others?
coming to see me too.
yes, I would, if you could tell me the others.
Suzanne Waller.
I'm right here, 32 Second Lane, I'm a direct abutter, and also, my mail goes to a P.O. box, but it goes to Kate's Corner, so they know me. I've been here 20 years, so if
Oh,
they
yeah.
sent it to the street address, they would know how to get it to me.
You are on the list of abutters,
Yes,
It says P.O. Box 4115.
yes.
South Chelmsford.
Martha Krauk.
P.O. Box 4096,
What's the street address?
46 Second Lane.
You as well are on the list of abutters. I don't know why these haven't come in. I'm gonna ask Mr. Haverty, what is the correct way to proceed with this? I don't know.
Well, the way the law works, if there is a party that didn't receive notice of a hearing and they attend the hearing, that basically cures the defect in the notice. So in this instance, anybody who didn't receive notice but still managed to get here,
Is considered
it doesn't
notified.
prevent the board from moving forward. However, it does raise a concern if there are others who didn't receive notice who are not here, because then that creates a defect in the proceeding. So that's something that should at least be followed up on.
There's a question in the audience, Brian.
Yes, ma'am.
The Carlisle Baptist Church is also in a butter. They are Parkerville Road and Second Lane. And they own the waterfront between myself and 46 Second Lane. So they have a board for the church. The pastor also lives in a parsonage on the end of Parkerville and Second Lane. And I don't think they've been.
Do you know their legal address?
Parkerville would be Parkerville Road.
They have to get their taxes.
I don't know, because often they're not in order, for whatever reason.
The numbers
The Carlisle Congregational Church has an address of 44 Parkerville Road.
And the address, the mailing address is 147 School Street in Carlisle.
Yeah, okay, that must be the church's board.
Anyone here for the church?
Is anyone attending from the church this evening?
We don't know.
Got this back to Mr. Haverty.
So, again, what was the address for the church?
The abutter's address is 46 Second Lane.
No, that's.
I'm sorry, yeah, 44 Parkerville Road, and the mailing address is 147 School Street, Carlisle, 01741.
Can I add that that church also owns waterfront, so you have to come all the way down Second Lane past my house, access their right of way. They have a beautiful swimming area the church utilizes. So they have a street where the pastor lives, but they also have a recreational area.
Is that a second plot of land?
I'll pull it up.
Good question.
I guess even if it is, there's still on the list as an abutter. You wouldn't necessarily get two because you own two parcels.
And the post office is, I know.
Things are crazy these days.
Cannot guarantee today anymore.
So this is the church.
So, Mr. Chairman, what I would suggest is throwing it to the applicant to see if they're comfortable proceeding, because, again, a defect in the proceeding, not only causes a concern with regards to the validity of any decision you make, but it also extends the appeal period to 90 days after the defect is actually discovered by the particular party. So it creates, problems
Bit of a
for the
hardship for
applicant.
the
So
applicant as well.
the easy cure, of course, is to continue this for a month and renotice.
You can talk to your client as well. I don't know what to tell you here. I'm
Sure, allow,
unfamiliar territory.
allow me one moment to confer with my client.
I'm Patrick Larkin. I did reach out to the Congregational Church pastor and spoke about the property, and he indicated that he wasn't concerned about what was happening on the property that I had.
Okay.
So we'll elect to proceed, notwithstanding the suggestion that perhaps some abutter didn't receive notice. We'd still like to proceed this evening.
Okay.
And if I might, there was a PowerPoint, Colleen, that the applicant emailed earlier.
Oh,
I have
yes.
hard copies of it I'd like to hand to them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have 24, 26, and 30, so 28 is really not applying to this anymore. Is that
That's a
correct?
significant part of the change since we were last year.
Okay.
That's the most significant part. So if I may, I'll start, and Colleen, if you have that PowerPoint, maybe I can.
1 second.
Sure, take your time.
Got it?
You might start at the last page, if that's all right with you.
Oh, sure.
Work our way backwards.
Okay.
Work our way back out of it.
There we go.
The last page of this just has probably the clearest depiction of what's being proposed here for the project. So first, I just want to remind everyone the posture by which the applicant is before the board. Applicant is, it's an LLC, but it's owned by Patrick Larkin and Michael Larkin. I'm Ryan McManus from Hemingway and Barnes here on the applicant's behalf. And the posture with which we're before the board is an appeal from the denial of a building permit by the building commissioner to demolish 4 pre-existing non-conforming homes on this property and to reconstruct 3 new homes on the property. And as you may recall, we were before this board over the summer with another proposal. At that time, the proposal was to demolish 4 pre-existing non-conforming homes and replace it with 4 new homes. So it was 4 for 4 at that time. The board denied that appeal. We've since appealed that to the land court, and that litigation is still pending. But the applicant has considered the reasons supporting the board's prior denial and has attempted to meet the board's concerns with this new proposal. This new proposal substantially reduced this project by eliminating one of the new homes that was planned to be constructed. So what you see here on the plan is the green and yellow are the new homes that are being proposed. The red outlined structures are the existing structures that would be demolished as part of this plan. Again, this goes from 4 pre-existing non-conforming homes to 3 new homes. I just want to start by describing the project in a little bit more detail. The 3 new homes, and again, this is responding to some of the concerns we've heard. The 3 new homes that are proposed.
Just for the audience, are we at the property summary now?
I am, yes, yeah. If you want to go to page 2, Colleen, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Can't hear him.
Is that better?
Get a little closer for him.
Talk now.
Is that okay?
Can you hear?
Can you hear me? I'll try to speak up for everyone's benefit. I am on page 2, Colleen, in the PowerPoint right now. So there are 4 structures on the property that will be raised, and 3 new structures will be built. Those 3 new homes are all different sizes. They're all different styles. They all conform with the historic setback requirements in section 195-8E of the bylaw. So these are pre-existing non-conforming structures. The new structures that will be put in place comply with those historic setback requirements. The new dwellings will significantly increase the value of this property. The existing dwellings, there are photos of them in this PowerPoint. I think we can all see that they're in need of significant repair. Most of them have been rental properties for quite a while now. None of them, I believe, were owner occupied. This new project will not result in any change of the use. We're not proposing to change the use from single-family residential homes. There are 4 single-family residential homes now. There will be 3 single-family residential homes under this project. Replacing the old homes with these new homes will greatly increase the energy efficiency of the homes. Obviously, the prior homes, all of which were built prior to 1950, I think the latest one was constructed in 1950, in need of significant repairs. I do want to point out that of the 3 new homes, the one closest to Hart Pond, 30 Second Lane, will be occupied by the applicant. Patrick Larkin and his family intend to move into that home, and they've waited a while to try to get this project underway, and they are patient, but they intend to move there. They want to be part of this neighborhood. So I want to just talk for a moment and focus the board's attention on what the issue before the board is as we understand it. The issue is not whether these structures are dimensionally conforming. I believe that's been settled. That was not an issue last time we were before the board. Town council opined on that. Because the new structures all fall within those historic setbacks, they are permissible as of right under the bylaw. We talked last time we were here about the footprint issue, and town council has opined on that. The fact that they won't be built in the same footprint as the prior structures is not an obstacle to proceeding with this. Under the current bylaw as it reads, structurally, this is permissible as of right. The issue that was raised and the issue on which the board decided last time was use. The question is, does the project result in a change or a substantial extension of use? The word substantial is critical. It's not any extension of use, but is there a substantial extension of use here? So that's the primary question that's before the board this evening. There's a secondary question that even if the board concludes there's a substantial extension of the use, going from 4 to 3 is still a substantial extension somehow. The second question is that extension of use substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood? If it's not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, the board can make what's called a Section 6 finding and can allow the project, even if it is a substantial extension of the use. So I want to make clear that we don't think it's a substantial extension of the use, and therefore it's permissible as of right. But even if the board finds that it is a substantial extension of use, in the alternative, we'd ask you to make that Section 6 finding that it's not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood and to allow the project on that basis. On the issue of use, Colleen, could I ask you to pull up page 10 in the PowerPoint? So again, the question is not the structural dimensions of these, but the use of the property. Current use, single-family residential, 4 single-family residential. The continued use will be the same, but with 1 less home. We're not changing the use at all. There's no commercial or industrial use. We're not adding any additional residences. It's not going from 4 to 5 or 4 to 6. It's going from 4 to 3. We're not changing this from a single-family use to 2-family or multifamily use. Again, the focus is on the use not necessarily the dimensions of the structures. Now, when we were before the board in the summer and the board ruled on the prior appeal, which was a proposal to go from 4 houses to 4 new houses, the board denied it primarily for 2 reasons, at least as I read the decision. First reason was that the new homes would have more bedrooms and therefore potentially result in more traffic in the neighborhood. And the second reason was the total size, the aggregate size of all of the structures together. We've tried to address those 2 concerns with this new proposal. Obviously, we've dropped one of the houses. As to the question of traffic, the applicant commissioned a traffic study of this new proposal. We submitted it to the board. Hopefully the board has it. I have copies if you do not. Colleen, do you have that electronically, or I'm happy to distribute copies of that traffic study.
I have not seen one.
I have it here, if you want to read it.
We have it.
Sure, yeah, I'll take this copy. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
We have it, thanks.
So again, the issue of traffic, which played a significant role in the board's prior decision, we've tried to address that. This is a traffic study prepared by transportation engineers, and I think the upshot, the conclusions that are most significant here are, in terms of numbers, they found that what you're looking at is an increase by 2 bedrooms from the old project to the new project, which would potentially increase the number of occupants by 3 persons. That's obviously speculative to an extent, but based on the information that they use in conducting these studies, they're assuming 3 additional occupants, and they're assuming approximately 6 additional vehicle trips per day. So from 54 vehicle trips to 60 vehicle trips, about a 10% increase. And according to the study, I want to point out what I think some of the key conclusions. On the first page, the study concludes, over a 24-hour period, these trips are not likely to be noticed by the public. Not likely to be noticed by the public. And elsewhere, the report characterizes that increase, 54 to 60, as negligible. It's a 10% potential increase in the number of vehicle trips. Clearly, to the extent that's any extension of the use, it's a minimal extension. It is not a substantial extension of the use. Again, it's negligible difference according to this traffic expert. So we do think, as revised, this project does deal with the concerns that were raised by the board about possible increases in traffic. The other concern that was raised by the board was just the size of the structures. Lot coverage, floor area ratio, and those sorts of things. Obviously, we've reduced that by eliminating one of the buildings altogether. So we're going to have 3 homes rather than 4. But I also just want to point out there's some risk of conflating the analysis here of nonconforming structures and nonconforming use. They are separate and distinct. And I do think questions about floor area ratio and coverage really need to be analyzed under the structural component of this. And again, we comply with the bylaw on that. But in any event, to the extent that those structural changes are raising any concerns about use, I just want to put the numbers in perspective here. For this project, the proposed lot coverage would be 10.9%. That's well within what the current zoning bylaw, not the historic, but the current zoning bylaw allows, which is 15%. So lot coverage, it complies with current zoning. They could build a single-family home with greater lot coverage than they're proposing as a matter of right. Same as FAR. FAR under this proposal is about 18%. Under the current bylaw, what's allowed is 20%. So they're, again, within the current zoning bylaws on both lot coverage and FAR. So these structural changes, I mean, these houses, there's no dispute, these houses are larger than the houses that are currently there. But I want to point to, some of the law on this, and we've quoted the cases, I think the same cases that town council has identified. And Colleen, if you can pull up page 11 of the PowerPoint. So these are some quotes from the Powers case, which is really the seminal case on non-conforming uses. And again, I think it's important to understand what the courts have said. It is not different in kind simply because it is bigger. It's not different in kind simply because it's bigger. A non-conforming use of the same premises may not only be continued but also increased in volume. And really, what the case holds is that you don't look at the increase in size simply for the sake of the size. The question is, how is that increase somehow impacting the use? How is that affecting the use of the property? And is it substantially extending that use? And I think the only discernible impact in use that we've seen from the size is if there are more bedrooms, there may be more occupants. And if there are more occupants, there may be more traffic. Thus, we commissioned the traffic study. And I think, again, when you look at what impact the size is actually having on the use, in the words of that traffic study, it's negligible. So again, we don't think that the simple fact that these structures are larger in any way changes the analysis here. The question is, does that somehow substantially extend the use? Not just extend, but substantially extend the use. And it simply doesn't here. It's still a single-family residential use. There's still going to be families living here. It's going to be 3 families instead of 4. That's the difference. I also want to point out on the next page of this slide, Colleen, Powers is really the most significant case on this subject, but there are a number of others, and we've cited some of them. But just some examples. Adding 20,000 square feet to a nursing home, going from 40,000 to 60,000 square feet, not an extension of use. Adding 20% more beds to that nursing home, not an extension of use. Again, the courts don't look at, did you make something bigger? What they look at is, are you changing the way that's being used? Are you intensifying that use in such a way that it's going to have a different effect on the neighborhood around it? This simply won't. Again, the only discernible impact on use would be a potential increase in traffic. That increase is negligible. I do want to talk about the impact on the neighborhood insofar as it relates to what I said is maybe a secondary question before the board. And just to be clear, we think the board should conclude there is no substantial extension of use, and that's the end of the inquiry. If that's the case, this is permissible as of right. But even if the board finds there is a substantial extension of the use, the question is then, is that extension substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood? Again, that word substantially is in there. We don't think that this would be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. Again, in terms of neighborhood impacts, the potential for increased traffic, we've identified what it is, it's minimal. I think you need to consider all of the positive effects that this potentially will have on the neighborhood when considering the detriment. Frankly, we don't think there is a detriment at all. We think it's a net positive. Among other things, this proposal moves the structures on the lot away from the lot lines. We had a lengthy discussion last time about one of these structures actually encroaches on the neighbor's property, extends over the lot line. Another of the structures is right up against the lot line. This proposal is going to bring them away from the lot lines, bring it more in conformance with zoning. The prior homes, as I mentioned, mostly occupied by transient occupants, mostly renters. These are likely to be owner-occupied homes. These homes will be more energy efficient. 32nd Lane, the property that's going to be closest to Hart Pond, is going to be moved back from the shore of the pond considerably. The current structure is right on the shore. It's both within a floodplain. From my environmental standpoint, it's far from ideal. Moving it back will mitigate the environmental impacts on Hart Pond. It will move it outside of the floodplain. Additionally, there's a landscape plan. It's included in this PowerPoint that proposes 26 new trees to be planted along this property, along the east side of the property line that will be between the new homes and the butter to the east, and also some on the west side of the property near 32nd Lane. So again, it's going to increase the attractiveness of this lot. This is going to increase property values. Again, the homes that are there right now are in significant disrepair. I don't think anyone in this room would say that the current state of that lot is good for the neighborhood. And that's what's going to exist if the applicant isn't permitted to reconstruct these homes. That current state, which is not good for the neighborhood at all, will persist. And finally, in terms of neighborhood detriment, I just want to highlight again that Patrick Larkin, the applicant, is going to live in one of these homes. He has as great an interest in anyone as ensuring that his new neighborhood is not detrimentally impacted by this development. He's going to be the closest neighbor to all of these new homes. So again, the plan he's put forward is thoughtful. It takes into consideration what the board's concerns were. It responds to those by significantly reducing the scope of this project. And we think as a result, it should be approved as of right because it's not a substantial extension of the use. If the board disagrees with that, we think the board should still make that Section 6 finding that any extension of the use is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood and allow the project to go forward. I'm happy to answer questions about the project or the changes that have been made since we were last here.
I guess, taking this in, I still don't understand how you can put multiple principal structures that are not allowed as per 195-102 on the property. I don't know how you're getting around that. I don't understand that.
So there are multiple principal structures on the property now. They're grandfathered structures. They're pre-existing non-conforming uses. They can be reconstructed because they're pre-existing non-conforming uses. I think this is, and I defer to town council, I think this is an issue on which he opined in terms of can these be reconstructed or not. I think this is an issue on which he opined during the last appeal, but I'll let him speak for himself.
How are we determining that they are principal structures? That all those 4 buildings are principal structures? How is that determined?
Well, there's 4 different residential uses occurring within those structures currently. So they are, I mean, if they weren't principal structures, if they were determined to be accessory structures, they would be allowed uses. I mean, you can have accessory structures, but these are being used as residential structures. So they're not accessory, they're principal.
So that's what makes them principal.
You have 4 principal uses on a single lot, currently. Regarding the question of whether or not these structures can be reconstructed in a different location, I did address this back in July, my July 1st, 2021 letter. I looked at the case law. There's a case law out of Nantucket in which they said that you can reconstruct the structure at a different site. There's subsequent case law interpreting that out of the land court that says it seems clear, given the facts of the Glidden case, when using the term different site, the Glidden court was speaking not of a different lot, but of a different location or site on the same lot. So that, to me, seems to say that you can relocate the structure or structures elsewhere on the lot and still reconstruct. That would still be considered a reconstruction under the bylaw and under Chapter 48, Section 6. So then the question becomes, again, the same analysis that the board had to undertake last time, which is under the powers test. The first prong is whether the present use reflects the nature and use prevailing when the zoning bylaw took effect. I think that that's clear. It's still 4 principal residential structures, so the use isn't changing. Second prong, whether there's a difference in the quality or character as well as the degree of the present use. And I think that that's something that the board needs to have a discussion about. And then the third, whether the current use is different in kind in its effect on the neighborhood. And again, that's something the board needs to have a discussion about. When it was 4 principal structures and the increase in bedrooms was obvious, the increase in floor area ratio and increase in lot coverage, were very clear. The board made the determination that this actually did constitute a change in the use, a substantial increase in the use according to the powers test, and denied it. The question is the current proposal different enough from that previous proposal that analysis has changed? So clearly the number of bedrooms has been reduced. The traffic impacts are not as significant as before. The floor area ratio, the lot coverage has been reduced. I glanced through this quickly and I didn't get a copy of this before the meeting. I don't see anything that compares the existing floor area ratio and lot coverage of the entire site currently in the entire site as proposed. So I think that's information the board is going to want to have.
We do have that on page 9, I think.
Page 9.
Yeah, apologies for not bringing that to everyone's attention.
That's okay.
Does considering how the current 4 structures were used and what they're going to be used need to be a consideration?
Yes.
I'm sorry, what was that question
Like
again,
the,
Jeannie?
like the buildings now, I mean, determining or understanding that they've been vacant or abandoned, or they were only used seasonally, or they've been empty for a couple of
Transient
years.
was the attorney's,
I mean,
choice of
as
words.
opposed to now being a full-time, fully occupant, would that be considered a degree of change in present use to new future use?
It could be, if they were solely used as, seasonal residences. I believe the claim has been made previously that they have been rented, full year-round for many years. I don't know if they're currently rented, but.
Yeah, to be clear, none of these were abandoned. None of them, in recent years at least, have been seasonal use. They have been rented, they were occupied full-time. They are currently vacant because the applicant was instructed to disconnect the utilities before applying for the building permit. So obviously, to disconnect the gas lines and everything else, they needed to be vacated. So they're currently vacant, but that's only in anticipation of this. So the prior use was occupancy, year-round, primarily by folks who are renting those houses.
And I think that was.
But in that case, do we need to consider what the new use will be? Will they be rented to the new, or it sounds like.
I don't think
the
that's a
intent is to sell
legitimate
them.
issue that the board should be considering. It's residential, whether it's home ownership or whether it's rental, it's still residential, it's
Yeah.
still.
How about in terms
I'd
of
rather
who
think of
owns
property
the
or not.
lot? So who will own the lot? Who owns the lot now, right? It's under Larkin Development?
Correct. It's
Okay.
it's owned by an LLC.
And then, so when those two homes are constructed, two families, I take it, would buy the other two homes. Who owns that land?
So my understanding, and I'll have my client correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is it will be common ownership, and there'll be rules akin to a homeowners association that govern the use of common areas. So, it's akin, it's technically a condominium association.
So to be clear, the applicant could take the 4 structures that are currently present on the site, fix them up, sell them as condominiums, and do a condominium on that one lot right now. So
that's not considered a
That's
change
not a
in use?
change.
Okay.
As I understand it, that's just a reference to the form of ownership, not the
Right.
type of use.
And that's a statutory issue.
And the form of ownership isn't indicative of a change of use.
Correct.
necessarily.
Okay.
I still struggle with the 4, but I know we're down to 3, so I think the one that is not essentially on the property, ownership is questionable to me, as most of the house is not on the property, but I think we're past that with the 3.
Well, and we had this discussion before. The problem with going down that road is it leads to the applicant having to assert an adverse possession claim. And then you're putting property owned by one of the abutting property owners at risk if they have to assert that claim in order to move forward on this
And
proposal.
I think we've gotten away from that with the new application of 3 housing units.
Correct.
Yeah, and I understand your concern, Mr. Chairman, and we may not see eye to eye on it, but I think it's a moot point now because there are only 3 proposed to be constructed.
But, and I don't pretend to understand it fully, but I do know what I'm looking at when half the house is not on the property.
Understood, and I agree with Attorney Haverty that, the result of that would be put in a position to have to bring an adverse possession claim, which, again, we want to bring this more into conformance. We want to move these structures away from the lot lines, bring them into conformance with at least those historic setbacks. And what the bylaw says is we're permitted to do that as of right because these are grandfathered structures.
So according to page 9 of this PowerPoint presentation, the existing building coverage is 4,743 square feet, and the proposed building coverage will be 6,581 square feet. Is there information on the floor area ratio?
It is above that, Attorney Haverty,
See maximum building coverage?
all the way to the last right-hand columns on that upper half of the page.
Existing FAR?
Existing FAR and proposed FAR.
All right. So the existing floor area ratio is 5,369 square feet. The proposed floor area ratio is 10,953 square feet, which is still below the maximum floor area ratio of 12,006 square feet.
Correct. And again, the point of that is, someone could come in and provided they comply with other dimensional requirements, build a house with 12,000 square feet, it'd be a gigantic house. But we're below what current zoning allows in terms of floor area ratio and in terms of lot coverage. So, and again, they are increased. These houses are bigger than the existing houses there. Not a lot of people are building 1,100 square foot houses, let alone 800 square foot houses, certainly not in Chelmsford. But the question is, how is that size impacting the use? Still families living there, there's still single family use. And we're going from potentially four families living there to 3 families living there.
So you're saying you, before turning off the electricity, you had families living in building 24?
I don't know, if it was a family or what the definition of family is. There were occupants. There were some single occupants in some of these.
Because I drove by to see the land, and those buildings look like they've not been seen, cared for in quite some time, let alone be occupied by a family.
They certainly haven't been cared for. I don't disagree with that, but they were occupied. And the point being, I don't think it's a relevant consideration of specifically who lived there. A family could have lived there. A family can live there now. You could have 4 families move in there, however many number of children. There's no restriction on that. It may be unlikely, given the size of them, but the issue isn't who actually was living there. The issue is, what's the current use that's allowed, and the use that's grandfathered on this is 4 single-family homes. We sought approval for 4 single-family. We recognize the board's concerns. We've decreased it to 3 single-family homes. And again, when you look at impacts on the neighborhood, based on things like bedrooms, based on all of the considerations that all the differences between the existing structures and the new structures, those impacts on the neighborhood, adverse impacts, are negligible. And I think you have to balance those against the positive impacts that this is going to have. It's going to bring this lot more into conformance than it currently is. Should it have ever gotten this way isn't a question before the board, obviously. It's going to bring it into better conformance. And again, if you've been by this lot, if you've driven through there, I don't think that the current condition of this lot, which is the condition that will unfortunately remain if the applicant's not allowed to build, I don't think that is in the best interest of this neighborhood.
Well, I think I'll open it up to the audience. I have,
Mr. Chairman, did you want to hear from the building commissioner? Is he still on?
yeah, I thought his letter was, we could ask for Jose's opinion. Mr. Negron? I never know who I'm talking to here. Jose?
He's on his phone, so he's at work.
Okay. Mr. Negron?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, I can hear you now.
So we have your denial letter here for the new application, and we're just trying to make heads or tails of the whole confusing matter.
Yes, so Mr. Larkin came back with 1 house less on his plans, and I decided to issue a second letter of denial based on my interpretation of 195 AE and 195-12. I also thought that the neighbors should have a chance to voice their concern and questions if they have any. At this time, I leave it up to the board to kind of decide on this matter and town council to advise further. The only thing I see here is that my understanding of 195-12 multiple principal structures, it really begins with the exception in residential districts, and to me, when it goes further, that more than one principal non-residential structure, so it is clearly stated that it's non-residential structures are allowed on a single lot. So again, I will respect the decision of the board. But I issued my denial letter based on these 2 sections of the bylaws, and that's how I would like to. That's the way I wrote the letter.
In reviewing that, It says, except in the residential districts, this would apply to, more than one principal non-residential structure may be erected on a lot pursuant to a special permit issued by the planning board. Are we hearing this correctly, or is this?
But that's, so what that means is, in
Non-residential structure.
commercial zones, more than one principal structure is allowed on a single lot, but only through the issuance of a special permit by the planning board. Residential districts, you're not allowed to have multiple principal structures on a single lot.
Yeah, this is except in residential districts.
They're in a residential district,
Grandfathered.
so the only reason this is before you is because it is a grandfathered use.
If we had a vacant lot and we came to you asking to build 4 structures,
Would not be
obviously the result would be clear. And that is the difference, that these are pre-existing non-conforming. That's why there's a non-conforming use. The non-conforming use, to the extent there is one, is that there are multiple structures on a lot, which is not
That is the
permissible.
non-conformance.
Correct.
That helps. Again, I think I'm going to open it up to the audience. I have multiple letters here. If you've written a letter, I'm going to read it into the record, so sorry about that. But if you haven't written a letter, or if you have written a letter and you want to speak, you may. We should probably go with one or the other, because it's already a little later than I do.
I can speak. I've written a letter. You don't have to read it.
All right, I appreciate that.
And I,
Your name and address, sir.
Bob Laporte, I live at 38 Parkerville Road. I spoke at the July 1st meeting.
Yes, I remember, I just, for the record.
And I want to bring a little bit of clarity on certain issues having to do with use. The use of this property was historically as a family compound, and they had summer cottages. And this 1.45 acre lot that's before you was actually on the same deed with the front lot on Parkerville Road. And during the history of the Byam ownership, there was a creation of 2 lots out of 1 lot. So on the deed that the judges had that sold it to the applicant, it was 1 deed with 2 lots. One of those 2 lots had frontage on Parkerville Road and had a long abandoned camp on that.
That is being constructed now.
That is being constructed now. That had the frontage. The second lot had access via this 10-foot wide right-of-way easement.
Second lane.
It's not second lane. It's just referred to on the deed as a 10-foot wide strip.
It's commonly referred to as second.
Second lane.
But maybe not
It's all
legally, but-
easements. Second lane is all easements, not a town way. Town doesn't maintain it. There's no road association associated with snow plowing and maintenance of this way, nor any association that deals with people parking on it and stopping traffic flow. So the use from a seasonal family compound morphed into a rental property. So the characterization that it was a single-family residential use, I would characterize it rather as a seasonal camp, family compound camp that morphed into a rental property, and that's what it was at the time the property sold. It was not single-family homes. These were structures that were rented by the previous owner. And so I think in looking at the proposed use, that is going to be a significant change in the use of the property from, rental cottages, camps, to more than likely a condominium form of ownership. And to me, that triggers this significant change in use from what it was to what is being proposed.
When you say it was rented by the previous owner, was it his intent to rent it all year long?
It's my understanding, yes.
Okay.
They rented these year-round.
All year long?
Right.
Okay.
When did that commence?
Well, one of the relatives is here. Pam, do you know when it changed from the family compound to,
Well, originally, the 3 camps were occupied only in the summer by relatives. So there was my cousin Amelia, my cousin Paul, my cousin David, each had a little camp. And they just used it in the summer. When they started dying, so Amelia died in 19, I don't want to be old with this, say the late 90s. Then her cottage was no longer used, and her sons who inherited the property started renting it out. One cottage remained in the family, and he had lifetime residency there. When he died, his son lived in the cottage. So until last November, one of those cousins lived in the cottage. Since, yeah, I don't want to add more than you want to know. So
Very helpful.
I would say in the late 90s, it started to be rented. One cottage was always rented out to one single woman my entire adult life. She lived in the 571 square foot cottage.
Year round.
You know, that's hard to say because they were cottages. They were hard to live in the winter. So people that were even there in the winter took off. You know how people go to Florida or go someplace warm and then they come back in the spring. So I wasn't up there in the winter, so I can't testify to that.
Okay. Thank you.
I could add to that if you like. I resided next door for 28 years.
You can.
Oh, sorry.
We're going to keep some semblance of order here.
Well,
Approach the podium and speak.
so I guess the issue is that there is, it wasn't clearly, I would not define these structures as single-family structures. I define them as really, they morphed into, whether legally or illegally by the town, they morphed into this rental ownership situation. And there may have been some home occupancy in that period of time. I guess the other struggle I have is the fact that from my research and looking at the deeds, there's no recorded plan that shows a subdivision of the front lot to the back lot. There is a legal description of the 2 lots, but to my knowledge and in researching at the registry, the town never approved this 2-lot subdivision. I think it was created in convenience to the ownership at the time, and they may have had a survey done, and they created these 2 lots, one of which, the frontage lot, has now been sold, and they're building a new house on it. So my question goes to, now we've got this 1.45 acre lot with no frontage, and its only access is on this 10-foot wide right-of-way that is used by other homes along the so-called second lane. So that the extension of use seems to me to overburden now this 10-foot wide driveway by creating these 4, I'm going to call them condominium structures that
We
will
are
be
down to 3.
down to 3 on the property. And by selling off the front lot, they've lost the frontage, which normally would be used for creating frontage for these structures. So I guess I get, in my own mind, I'm saying, well, how can a owner create a 2 lots on the same deed, sell off each separately, and now we're left with this 1.45 acre lot whose only access is on a 10-foot wide right-of-way that's shared with a lot of other cottages on Second Lane, of which there's no road maintenance. So there's no structure that deals with a road association that controls the snow plowing, the maintenance, and use of that 10-foot wide right-of-way strip. So I think it's a complicated issue that deals with this life safety issue that I talked about on July 1st. As to, I think it's all there. I think all these need to be taken into consideration. None of us have had a opportunity to review the traffic study that was done and whether or not it's really discusses the relevancy of all the issues that really need to be discussed for a 10-foot wide driveway. It's a traffic report, talks about, street, Parkerville Road, but it's really its impact on a 10-foot wide driveway that's shared by many other people.
How many other people do utilize that lane? Is that the only access for it?
I think some people are going to talk about that here, so we're going to have it. But there's a number of cottages that use this.
That's the only access to. They have
So this project only has rights to this 10-foot wide strip. They do not have rights to exit out further on second lane where it goes to fourth lane. They don't have any property rights that allow them that kind of access. Their access is solely limited to this 10-foot wide strip, which I think is an important issue.
It's not frontage.
So I think the change of ownership is a significant change. So we're going from a one lot, one owner to a situation where we're going to have multiple ownerships through a condominium type of ownership form. That's a significant change. And I don't know of any other place in the town that that kind of situation exists.
I don't know of one either.
Yeah.
I think we discussed a little earlier that whether they are rental, condo, or homeowner, it's still, it's the same, it's housing.
Correct.
There's no prejudice to renting or owning or a condominium or how it's set up legally. It's still a,
These have been classified as single-family residences, not as rental properties. They're going to be sold. So, as compared to
yeah,
now,
that-
it's a
that's not
single
stumbling
lot.
block for me. There's a lot of problems here, but that's not one of them for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
That doesn't
Well, I
mean
just
that
say
the other
it's
board doesn't
a
have-
single lot today with one owner. And that's going to change to multiple owners. And especially where it's been a rental property, it's going to change to home ownership. That's a use change in my view. But that's,
To have
you know.
you disagree with the use change. I'm
Yeah,
just
I
saying
know.
From
yeah.
a legal standpoint,
I'm
which-
just saying from a practical standpoint, it's.
No, I understand your point.
Yeah, and, I think my letter addresses a lot of other issues. The life safety issue remains in the forefront, I think, given the fact that this is a 10-foot driveway. And I suspect the traffic study has not dealt with the specifics of this is a 10-foot wide driveway that's used by multiple people. And so the life safety part of it is, I think, not part of that study.
Do the Fourth Ave people have access to the Second Ave right away, which you're talking about now?
I believe they do.
But they
have
you
rights.
won't have that.
No, the owners do not. They only have rights to a 10-foot wide strip that goes from Parkerville Road down to Hot Pond. That's the only right that's deeded.
It's deeded, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Suzanne Geary Lawler, 32 and 34 Second Lane. I'm sorry?
So you're the one right next, if you're facing the property to the right?
Yes.
The yellow, is it yellow or cream?
Tan, yes. I have lived at that property for 28 years, and before building the house that we live in now, we also had a cottage similar to what was on the Byam property. I lived there for one winter, And I can tell you after one winter, it's not a family home. I had a little daughter and I said, we're tearing this down and we need to build a house that's for a family. It was really a summer cottage that had been used by the Marinell family before us. So my biggest concern would be that those houses are, and to use house is really more of a cottage. Yes, there were some single people over the 28 years I lived there, perhaps a couple. Never in 20 years was a child residing in any one of those homes. And for good reason. The ceilings and roofs were collapsing. I don't know what kind of insulation, and if a building inspector went through for occupancy, I'm quite sure it would not pass. There was a neighbor who lived there for probably 15 years, and then she moved to the front property because that had been empty. So throughout the years, they have not been consistently occupied, and usually one adult, maybe two. Like Pam was mentioning, there was one of the Byam, Billy Byam was one of the original family members. When he passed away, his son resided there up until about maybe 2 years ago. But definitely not similar to what's being proposed. The other concern is certainly how narrow the road is. The church people who have events maybe once a summer will park on Second Lane to access the water for their adult baptisms. And on that one summer day, I'm telling you cannot get down Second Lane. So if there was an emergency, they would have to come through Fourth Lane and around. And I'm also concerned about what is the ruling on parking on a street. If these new units have a garage and there's 2 or 3 or 4 adults, I don't know, living in a condo, there's no rule about how many adults can occupy one of these, condexes. How many more cars is that? And if they don't all fit, if it's a very short driveway, will they have the ability to park on the street? And as someone who needs to get out of Second Lane every day to get to work, and I'd want to make sure an ambulance could get through or any other emergency vehicles, I know that neighbors on Second Lane share my view of concern about how narrow it is and potential street parking. And Mr. Laporte touched on other things, and I don't want to waste time reiterating things that you already know, but I do have concern about the neighborhood's real estate value. I think any neighborhood in Chelmsford that has homes that average between $600,000 to $900,000 for the single-family homes in our neighborhood to come in and put some kind of a condex unit, every neighborhood in Chelmsford would be concerned about that. It's unlike the other structures in the neighborhood. That's it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, folks. My name is Robert Haig. I'm here with my wife, Mary Ellen. We reside at 24th Lane, which is the adjacent street over. As you know, there's no third lane on... excuse me, my diet says I'm supposed to eat right about now. I did write a letter. I'll let you read that, and I'll just make reference and paraphrase it so as not to read the whole letter. To bounce off of a couple of comments that were made. Currently, Second Lane has 4 homes on that lane, and should 4 homes, 3 by Mr. Larkin and the one that's under construction now, be built, that would double the use of that road. And again, as has been mentioned, there is no,
We are down to 3 on this application.
there are, but the home that is under construction right now would also certainly be making use of the mouth of that road to Parkerville, so it would have to be included as part of the structure. You also should take into consideration, if I may, that the road is used by FedEx and rubbish removal, by recycling trucks, the other utility vehicles that come in there, and if they use Second Lane by themselves, they wouldn't be able to make a turn or come out of that without just backing out or driving onto someone's property. So the Second Lane to Fourth Lane horseshoe, if you would, is required for vehicles at this point. Just in order for those vehicles, larger vehicles, to drive through. Make one quick point, and then I'll kind of wrap it up with 2 points. The Conservation Commission, in its earlier hearings, asked of Mr. Larkin for a formal rain garden plan that, to my understanding, never made it to the board or to this commission, and was not presented or drawn up. And that was done to address issues that we're concerned about on the lakefront: erosion, chemical runoff from fertilizer. And we just wanted to bring that out, that we feel that that's important. I believe the attorney referenced a landscape plan, but we're particularly concerned about erosion, runoff, and chemicals as they apply to the lake, because that's a wonderful community resource we want to make sure that we retain. The attorney referenced by right use, as he did in the July 1st meeting, and he's done so a couple of times as it relates to Chapter 195.8. I'd like to point out that Chapter 195 does make exceptions to the by right rules, and I'd ask you to consider those as you move forward. I also believe that the fire chief might have made reference to a clause of his concern as far as emergency vehicle entrance and egress from that space. I don't believe that should an emergency vehicle, hook and ladder vehicle, need to be used on Mr. Larkin's proposed home, that there's any way for it to turn around in any of his proposals. It would have to back out of a long extension driveway to even get to second lane to then take the horseshoe out. So that's an important life safety issue, and I believe that the fire chief's letter of denial in your July 1st made reference to at least one clause, and we might want to take a look at what he was referring to in that, because I believe that's what it touches on. So lastly, that homes, I noticed that the word condo association wasn't used until it was brought up by a member of the board, and now it's out in the open, if you would. Perhaps the attorney strategically chose not to use condo association as a term. Homes that are built under a condo association form of organization appear to be a method of skirting zoning bylaws for the profit of one developer at the expense of an entire neighborhood and a community resource. So it touches on the sanctity of our neighborhood by a condo association, and these dwellings that are located on 1.45 acres of available space violates current applicable zoning bylaw dimensions, but it goes against the spirit of the town's statutes, which are designed to prevent overbuilds in a community or a neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian, since everybody's brought it up, like the road and everything, this could be a good place to do a site walk. What do you think?
That's an excellent idea, Charlie.
Saturday would be a good day.
I mean, I've been there, but I haven't really looked at the road in comparison to.
Right, me neither.
If we could get permission from the owner to walk the site, I think that would be very helpful.
Yes.
Could we stake out the houses? Stake out the houses?
Proposed locations? No, stake out.
Stake out the
Take
house.
out the proposed.
Correct.
Yeah, I can look to have it staked out.
I don't think we need a surveyor to do it, just a good
Just-
general.
Estimate.
This Saturday of, this coming Saturday work for everyone?
Yeah, afternoon.
Will he have them staked out by then?
Not voting.
But would that be something you could have staked out by then?
Yeah, I can stake it out.
Okay.
What time?
Just peek and see,
Did we determine this already? I don't think I was at the July meeting. Did we determine that none of these were? Did
so
they
it
show
hasn't
proof?
been,
Did they show?
the abandonment clause, we don't have any definition for that to know that these properties have been abandoned, the buildings have been abandoned for a period of time.
And we don't have any evidence.
We don't
to
have any
suggest that.
evidence of that whatsoever.
Okay.
In fact, it sounds like they've been occupied, a 2-year period it'd be hard to understand that the water's been on, the electricity has been on. How about 10 o'clock, October 9th?
Till 12. Can we do noon?
Would you like to do noon?
Noon?
Noon, does that work?
On Saturday.
I won't be here this Saturday, Brian.
Yeah.
Sorry.
When is a good time to do
The
this?
next Saturday.
Okay, we're going to the 16th, I think. October 16th? You're out.
I'm good. Anytime.
How about early afternoon? Does that work out any better for anyone?
he
Wow.
was.
Saturdays.
Well, the sidewalk's a good idea. We need to figure out when we can do it.
I can do a Sunday walk there.
I
Wanna
can do Sunday.
I'm good with Sunday,
I am too.
right
This
after
coming
church.
Sunday.
Yep, right after church.
This
We're
coming
talking
Sunday?
the 10th or the 17th?
Oh, the 17th.
The 7th.
It's the long weekend.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
this is the long
weekend.
weekend.
Right.
I don't, either way is fine with me, either Sunday.
Does Monday work, being the long weekend?
No.
No? You run it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Bringing my kids.
so October 17th is an option? It's a Sunday?
What time? Noon?
Noon?
Noon? I know.
Yep.
Okay.
Got it.
All right, so that's what we'll do, and onward we go. Your name and address, sir?
Benton Burgess, 52nd Lane. Thank you for listening to us. I really do want to say I appreciate the board taking the time to help look out for our best interest. It is, and town council, we appreciate that, so thank you. I spoke at the last meeting on this. My objections haven't changed. We're still trying to take two big structures, putting them into a half acre of land. They're still changing a family summer cottage area into a condo association. And we're still got a lot of folks who are upset about it. So that's all I wanted to say. But,
I appreciate
yeah,
that.
and thank you very much for all you guys do. Thank you.
Anyone else that is wishing to speak tonight? Sam, am I able to not read your letter into the record if you're gonna speak?
Yes.
Okay. It's getting better and better.
So I have allergies and asthma, and I'm coughing a lot, so I hope I don't annoy you. I'll do the best I can.
Thank you.
Pam Rivard, 49 First Lane. I'm the direct abutter to this property. I'm not a lawyer. Don't play one on TV. I gave birth to one, but alas, she's not a land use attorney. But I am focused on the word reconstruction as it applies to 195.8E, which is the basis of saying, oh, they're grandfathered in under that bylaw. In my opinion, and it's not just my opinion, I've done research on it. I've looked at the insurance definitions of reconstruction. I've looked at every building site definitions of reconstruction. And what is being proposed here does not seem like reconstruction. There's no attempt to return it to its original state. It is a huge change in size, scale to the property, materials used, and character. If you take one building and you totally raise it and you build an entirely different building, that's not reconstruction. That's replacement. And that is not covered by the 195.8E, in my opinion. But I can't find any literature that contradicts that opinion. One point. Another point. To equate, I'm going to quote my letter because I think it's so cute. Okay. To equate, let's see. To equate the structures that are on this property now as single-family homes to what is proposed, I wish we could have a juxtaposition of what is there and what's proposed. And to equate them as all single-family homes, to me, is to equate a Chihuahua with a Mastiff. They're both dogs, but that's where the similarity ends. In all due respect, Mr. McManus, I would like to meet the family that can fit into a 571-foot square house with one bedroom. These are not single-family homes. That has one bedroom. I think you're counting 2 bedrooms for number 30. There's actually 1 bedroom and 1 room off the kitchen that sometimes people stayed in, but there's actually 1 bedroom. So that's 2 and then 3, but if you look at the chart that was presented, the traffic expert listed 8 bedrooms. I would argue that, but you're going to walk it, so see what you think. He said 8 bedrooms would accommodate 20 people. He's saying right now you have 8 bedrooms. You can have 20 people living there. Really? Is that 5 people per bedroom? How does he get that? Very close family. And then he says, and we're only increasing it to 10 bedrooms, so that would accommodate 23 people. So you have 3 people for the extra 2 bedrooms. I don't get that math. I don't understand that chart. But in any event, if you look at the 5 people who have been living on that piece of property for the past few years, as far as I can remember, what Mr. Larkin and his attorney want us to believe that those 5 people have no more traffic, no more activity, no more noise level than the how many potentially of actual families that could live there. It defies logic. No matter what the charts say, I would argue the charts. So you're changing from 571 to 2,500 square feet. That's a huge difference. And the largest of the cottages, which is 1,800 square feet, let's say we trade that for the beautiful house that Mr. Larkin's going to build for his family, which is, I don't know how many square feet that is. I don't care. It could be 6. I don't really care. But I think the last plan I saw, it was like 3,700 square feet. So you're doubling it. You're adding 4 bedrooms. And if Mr. Larkin is going to live there, he has beautiful children. They're very well behaved, I will say, because they're swimming in front of my beach sometimes. But they're teens, preteens. Are they going to have cars soon? Adding to the traffic. I still would welcome them. I'm not anything about that. I wanted to raise one more issue that we haven't discussed here, and I don't know. I'm not a land use attorney, and I'm not an expert on the building codes, although I'm much more acquainted with them than I was 2 years ago. So what the argument is they're grandfathered in, these structures, correct? Are the garages grandfathered in? Right now, there's one very small garage on that piece of property. The proposal is to add a very large garage to the main house and then a garage each on the other houses to be built, which adds to the structure dimensions on the small lot. Are garages grandfathered in? And if not, does he have to apply for a different permit to build those garages? Are they included in the square feet in ratio of structure to? I don't know the answer to those questions, but I would like someone to let me know that.
We're going to ask the attorney to respond to some of these.
Okay. There's one pre-existing non-conforming garage right now, the back wall of which is encroaching over my property.
And that's a detached garage?
You can make that determination when you go out to see it. It's, yes, I would say it's attached to that house. Yeah.
It is attached or it's detached?
Attached.
It has a breezeway kind
Breezeway, yeah. Be careful. Okay. I have more, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
All right. Another big concern for me is the statement that this is good for our neighborhood. This project is good for our neighborhood. It's going to be a lot better looking, because right now it is currently in a terrible state. Why is it in a currently terrible state? It was not in a currently terrible state when Mr. Larkin bought it. But right now it's been clear cut. There are roots and stumps and huge piles of sand, and the little cottages that are there have been left open to the weather. Debris from other building projects have been dumped there, leaned against the houses. So yes, when you go there, you're going to say, this is hideous. Had you seen it before, you would have said, what a beautiful lakeside lot this is. You can't legislate aesthetics. But to make the argument of, look at what a mess this is going to be so much better than this mess, kind of riles me, because it didn't start out a mess. It started out as a beautiful piece of property. And good for the neighborhood. So we've talked a lot about condo associations tonight. My question is, how is Mr. Larkin going to sell these houses? How do you sell them? I don't think he can subdivide because he has no frontage. So what do you do? What are the options? The only thing I can find in my research, and I'm just spending time looking, the only option I saw was land lease, residential land lease. If I'm wrong about that, I wish somebody would correct me right now, because then I can be quiet about it.
Yes, so they have the right to form a condominium association.
Right, but the condominium association has to have some relationship to the ground on which it's built. So usually condominium associations own the land they're built on.
The condominium association would own the entire lot.
Right.
And then each unit owner would own the physical structure that they're
Right.
purchasing.
Correct. But that would require that Mr. Larkin subdivide the property.
No, turning something from a single family to a condominium does not require a subdivision. because it remains a single lot. You only need a subdivision if you're creating
So
new lot lines.
the houses do not own the land under them, though. Who would own the land if it's not subdivided?
The land would be owned by the condominium association as a whole. And then the structures are owned by the unit owners.
Okay, so if the condominium association owns the land, yes, that's what you're saying, right? Where does that land end? Does that include Mr. Larkin's house? Does that include the whole lot, the 1.45 acres?
It would have to include the entire lot, because otherwise they're creating new lot lines, and that would require a subdivision.
Okay, so that means Mr. Larkin's house would become part of the condominium association, which he told me he would not be. So that, at the beginning, I believe he did, but I could have misunderstood. Point taken. So the plan is for all three houses to be organized as a condominium association, and that land goes from Mr. Larkin's ownership solely to the ownership of the residents of those three houses. Is that correct?
It goes to the ownership by the condominium association. Each
The owner-
unit would own a portion of the association.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. So I was going by my misperception that Mr. Larkin's house was not part of the condominium association. If it's not land lease, it is still and one more question. Are condominium associations considered multifamilies?
It depends on the type of the structure.
Okay. And are we, on the Hart Pond, Second Lane, are we zoned for multifamily? I don't believe so.
I don't believe you are, but again, they could create a condominium association that encompasses the existing structures. So, relocating and reconstructing those structures and creating a condominium association doesn't actually change the nature of that process. It's still the same.
But I think you would agree this is a big change for that property, a big reorganizational change for that property. A petty little thing, but it was quoted as, oh, we're going to put in 26 trees along the property line, which I welcome because I think it's along my property line too. But looking at his landscaping plan, I realized the trees are 18 inches tall. So it's going to be a while before those have an impact on how it looks and keeping us out. Pardon?
There's additional trees there right now.
Better conformance. I guess you have to live there to understand what it's like to live on the pond and what it feels like, the character of it, the community there, and everyone says this is going to be such a big improvement. To we who live there, we disagree. We think it's going to look like a subdivision anywhere USA. It's not going to fit in with the lake community that we have now. When you walk it, you are invited to also walk on my property to get a feel for what it was like. And ask yourself, is this with its clear cut, with its lawns, with its landscaping, does that fit in with what I see on the rest of the pond? So thank you for your kind attention. I didn't cough once, so that's good.
Thank you. Just so you know, we are going to do a hard stop at 10 o'clock, so we have some time, but just want everyone to know.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Jen Adelman. I'm the owner of 6 Second Lane, the construction that they're all talking about. We currently reside at 198 Littleton Road in Chelmsford. I'm here to speak in favor of Patrick Larkin. Mr. Larkin is a professional, honest businessman who has built many beautiful homes in Massachusetts. He wants to build a home for his wife and 5 children and 2 smaller family homes next to ours. We are building on Second Lane, and we are direct abutters to his lot and have no issue at all with his proposal. I would hope the board would take into account the views of the abutters who can actually see the old cottages, as opposed to those neighbors who cannot. Every cottage that is remaining is not structurally sound and could pose a danger to anyone going inside. They are dilapidated old cottages, and the time has come to knock them down and replace them with beautiful family homes. It's time to separate the sentimentality versus the improvement of this dilapidated area. His plans will only beautify the neighborhood and add value to everyone's homes around the area. I would like to see the board rule that going from 4 homes to 3 would be such an improvement to this neighborhood. I really hope you find in favor of Patrick Larkin and let him work to beautify this amazing neighborhood that we will call home. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else that wishes to speak tonight? I'm going to let you respond, but I do have some letters here that I need to read in, so I'm going to do that.
Of course,
before.
if you prefer to do that first, that's fine.
Okay. So this is from Lawrence Starr. My objections expressed in the following letter also apply to the new proposal by Hart Pond Development to build 3 houses on the 1.5 acre second lane site. We object to this proposal by Patrick Larkin. We reside on Hart Pond. 2.5 years ago, we purchased our home for a significant amount of money, specifically because of the low density, heavily forested, ecologically responsible quality of the area. This proposal will negatively impact all of these. Our expectation was that the Chelmsford zoning bylaw would represent us in respecting our values and protecting our investment. We see granting this proposal as a violation of that trust and provide a dangerous precedent for future development applications. Respectfully submitted, Lawrence Starr and Valerie Wolf, 52 Westview Ave in Chelmsford. Westview Ave.
Where is that in relation to?
It's across the pond.
It's on, so it's on, like, all the way over on, like,
It's almost in Westford, I think.
Okay.
Is it?
It's,
Yeah.
it's across the
It's
pond.
off of 27, yeah,
okay.
beyond Kate's Corner up as you go, yeah.
I think the rest of the letters were relinquished by, yes, they were. So I do have a couple letters here regarding the project from the town. The engineering department has no comments. The Board of Health on 24, 26, 28, 32nd Lane has no comments. The Fire Prevention Office, the developer shall maintain fire apparatus access requirements as previously noted by Chief Gary Ryan of the Chelmsford Fire Department. The fire apparatus access plan should be submitted to the Chelmsford Fire Prevention Office prior to construction of the first home. And this is the denial letter, which I've read already. So that is the end of my letters. You'd like to rebut some of the,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to respond to some of the comments that we heard, and I understand that it's going to be a site view and therefore continuance of the hearing for a decision to a later date, but I do want to respond to some of the issues that were identified and some of the board's questions. Access, we've heard a lot of concerns expressed about fire safety access. You just read the letter from the fire department. Obviously, the applicant is going to comply with the conditions that the fire department puts in place and that the fire department determines are necessary for safe access to the site.
has that been drawn, designed, or discussed at this point?
I had a discussion with the fire department, but we haven't drawn it up yet.
You know their requirements,
Yes.
and you feel you can meet them.
Yes.
There has been already an order of conditions issued by the Conservation Commission. I understand that that's recorded already. So, you know, in terms of complying with those conditions, those are going to be complied with as the project moves forward. But they've approved the project subject to those conditions. We've heard about the aesthetics of the site. I would encourage the board to look at the photos of the existing structures that are in the PowerPoint. You'll see them soon enough. Patrick Larkin did not do that. He's not responsible for the state of those. They have been in a state of disrepair for some time. Yes, he's cleared the site in the hopes that he can proceed with this project. It's necessary to proceed with the project, but he's not responsible for the condition of the homes on that property right now. We've heard a lot and discussed a lot, and I think it gets to a little bit of the heart of the problem here. Types of uses that went on in the past, how many people lived in certain of these units, and I think what it should indicate to the board is what we're supposed to be talking about when we think about change of use and what we're really not talking about. We don't take a non-conforming use like this use and say, oh, you know, Joe and Jane are having a baby. There's going to be a third occupant in that house. That's substantially extending the use. You know, we need to stop that. People aren't rushing into this board when families grow, when someone gets a driver's license. The use is single-family residential. That's a designated zoning use. That's what's been there. These have been occupied. They haven't been abandoned. But we're not looking at, well, there was one person there now and speculating about the size of the families that are going to move in next. There's 4 single-family homes. There's going to be 3 single-family homes. That's what the use and the extension of use inquiry focuses on, not the specifics of the personal circumstances of the individuals who are living on the property at any given time. We've heard concerns about reconstruction. Again, I think this is a question on which town council has opined. There is case law that indicates that a reconstruction or raising a building and rebuilding a new building on a different part of the site is permissible under the statute, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and therefore permissible in this circumstance. My understanding is also that that's the long history in Chelmsford. This is not the first site where that has been proposed. And I also want to point out that we've heard from a number of neighbors this evening, other residents of Second Lane, other residents who live along the shore of Hart Pond, who bought cottages, pre-existing non-conforming structures that were grandfathered, and tore them down and built beautiful homes, raised families there. That's what Mr. Larkin is asking to do here. He shouldn't be penalized simply because he's the last one to do so. This board has never questioned before whether someone who's doing that, tearing down a cottage that, you know, is small and been there for years and building a single-family home in its place, somehow extending the use because there's more bedrooms, likely to be more occupants, likely to be more children. It's permitted that. And if you take a view of the site, I encourage you to take a look at the view of the other lots on Second Lane. Second Lane doesn't provide frontage. These are all non-conforming lots at one point. They still are non-conforming lots. And people have reconstructed, and they've built big, beautiful homes. This applicant shouldn't be punished simply because he's the last one to request the ability to do that. So I understand that there will be a site visit, and I understand that the hearing's necessarily going to be continued, but I would welcome any further questions or issues that the board is struggling with, and I sense that there are still some. I'm happy to try to answer those or have the applicant try to answer those.
Any questions of the attorney at this time? Seeing none, maybe we'll put this on hold until the site walk. That makes sense.
And Mr. Chairman, just so I have clarity, is the intention to do the site walk and then take the matter up at a subsequent regularly scheduled hearing?
I believe that would be the case, yes. Which is November 4th. That's not a voting day, is it? A election day? Not this
Thursday.
Seeing that, could I get a motion to continue? Do we continue to the site walk, Paul? Is that correct? So we continue to November 4th. The site walk in between.
I make a motion to continue the Second Lane application until November 4th, pending a site walk, which will be held on 17 October, did we decide? Right? 17 October.
17 October is the site walk, yes.
Yes.
I'll second that.
Second, Aaron beat you to it. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi, Stephen. I forgot Steve was here.
Aye. Aye. We see you, Steve.
Aye. Stevie.
Okay.
Looks good out there, doesn't it?
Yes.
Big screen.
Big screen. Doesn't just.
Nothing else.
We need to adjourn, yes. Is there nothing else?
There's no.
No. I'll
No
advance
minutes.
next time.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, Brian.
Belly, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.